So just because you search somebody's residence or vehicle or other property doesn't necessarily mean that that person is your suspect in the crime. It simply means that that place is likely to have evidence related to
development in the case involving singer David and the body found in his Tesla. Police have executed a search warrant searching the house he was apparently staying at and walking out with what may well be.
The FBI just dropped a shocking new twist. Everyone was sure David was the monster behind Celeste Riva's passing. But after raiding his house and his car, the evidence is screaming something completely different. David might not be the slayer at all. So who's really behind this and why was he set up? This story isn't just wild, it's straight out of a crime thriller. Remember when the headlines first hit about a decomposed body getting found inside a Tesla registered to that singing dude? People thought it was fake at first, like some Netflix plotline. But nah, this is real life, and it's darker than anybody imagined. It all kicked off on what seemed like a boring Monday morning, September 8th, 2025, when workers at a Hollywood tow yard caught a disgusting smell coming from a black Tesla Model 3 that had been sitting there for days. The car had Texas plates and was registered to David Anthony Burke. Yeah, that's David's government name for those who didn't know. It had been parked on some Hollywood Hills street for more than 72 hours before someone finally called it in as abandoned and had it towed. And here's where it gets crazy.
Yeah, well, she was basically talking about how one of the identifying features of Celeste was a tattoo on her finger, which she specified to us, which we then transferred over to that information to LAPD, was that the tattoo.
Neighbors had already been whispering about this car creeping around, switching parking spots for weeks, like somebody was playing a twisted game of musical chairs with a Tesla. Those rich folks up in the hills don't play about strange cars on their block. So you know they were keeping tabs long before things went nuclear. When the tow yard crew finally cracked open that trunk, the nightmare they uncovered froze everybody in their tracks. Inside the front compartment, wrapped tight in some kind of bag, were decomposed, dismembered remains of what turned out to be a teenage girl. The condition was so horrific, the coroner needed more than a week just to confirm her identity. And the only reason they did was because of a tiny tattoo on her right index finger. That one discovery instantly pulled in LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division, making it crystal clear this wasn't some random missing person anymore. This was straight-up homicide territory. The body's advanced state told investigators it had been sitting in that Tesla for way longer than anyone thought. We're talking weeks, maybe even months. That chilling detail raised brutal questions about when, where, and how this crime really happened. Meanwhile, David?
Well, in order to get a search warrant, you need to be able to articulate to a judge that you have probable cause to believe crime has been committed and that evidence of that crime is going to be found in the place that you intend to search. So just because you search somebody's residence or vehicle or other property doesn't necessarily mean that that person is your suspect in the crime. It simply means that that place is likely.
He was states away, on stage night after night, touring to push his album Withered. On paper, that timing could have been his golden ticket alibi. He'd been on tour for weeks before the body surfaced. His team wasted no time dropping statements, stressing how he was performing in front of thousands of fans, cameras rolling, and that there was no way he could have been tangled up in this mess. At first, the court of public opinion leaned heavy in his favor. Fans, industry insiders, even some media outlets rode for David hard. After all, this was the same guy who built a squeaky clean reputation, the family-friendly artist who came up from nothing, making beats on his iPhone in his sister's closet. His breakout hit Romantic Homicide put him on the map, got him signed to Interscope, and landed him in sessions with heavy hitters like Z and Kali S. The thought that this quiet, innocent-looking kid could be tied up in something this twisted had people straight up saying, nah, no way. David's underdog come-up was exactly what made his fan base ride for him so hard. Born David Anthony Burke out in Houston, he didn't enter the game through the usual industry pipeline. He started off making Fortnite content, just trying to dodge copyright strikes by creating his own beats for those gaming clips. That grind turned into a music career, and his grassroots hustle, paired with his shy, humble vibe, made him the kind of artist fans felt they could actually relate to. He wasn't some industry plant with money behind him. He was the kid from nothing who built something. But as the case unfolded, that whole narrative started crumbling fast. LAPD pointed out that the Tesla was just one of several cars David owned, and more than one person in his circle had the keys. That meant managers, homies, even other artists he collaborated with could have been driving it. On the surface, that looked like it could give him breathing room from the crime. But here's where it got messy. While official statements tried to keep things neutral, the business world started pulling receipts in silence. Brands like Crocs and Hollister cut ties almost overnight, canceling campaigns and wiping collaborations clean, all before David had even been charged with a single thing. And let's be real.
It is the most insane thing I've ever heard. The story is the most insane thing I've ever heard. The reason why I say this is because, there is not really ever a circumstance where the best case scenario is that this person is just a pedophile kidnapper, and the worst case scenario is that he's a pedophile kidnapper who also...
When corporations move that quick to distance themselves, it usually means they've caught wind of something the public hasn't heard yet. That's when TMZ turned the heat all the way up by tracking down the victim's mother. She spoke on camera, dropping details that cops hadn't even confirmed yet. And her words had everybody flipping their perspective on the case. Not only did she confirm that the tattoo matched her daughter's, but she let it slip that her daughter had been romantically involved with someone named David before she vanished. That one revelation flipped the entire investigation on its head. That shocking revelation had investigators scrambling to lock down a timeline. And what they uncovered was darker than anyone was ready for. The victim was officially identified as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez from Lake Elsinore, California. She had a heartbreaking history, reported missing multiple times throughout 2024, with her last disappearance in April, when she was just 14 years old. And the date her body was discovered made the tragedy even more haunting. September 8th, just one day after what should have been her 15th birthday. This young girl never even got the chance to celebrate turning 15, and instead, her remains surfaced right after the milestone she should have been living. The cruel timing had investigators asking whether the date itself carried some twisted meaning for whoever was behind this crime. As soon as Celeste's name hit the public, the investigation shifted into overdrive. Police zeroed in on a Hollywood Hills rental where David spent most of his time, a house leased by his manager but basically his home base. The catch? That house sat less than 100 feet from where the Tesla had been dumped. That detail lit up all kinds of alarms. Experienced criminals usually go far out of their way to ditch evidence, making sure there's no link back to them. But here, a car holding a decomposed body was left practically on the doorstep of the place David was staying. That kind of move screamed either total panic or reckless sloppiness. And then came the digital trail, receipts that had the internet buzzing and the LAPD digging even deeper. What started as whispers on social media turned into a full-blown excavation of digital connections linking David and Celeste. The disturbing part? Some of those receipts went back years, tracing a pattern that allegedly began when Celeste was still a kid. The most damning piece didn't even come from police first. It came from David's own Discord server. Archived messages surfaced, showing him chatting with a user named Celeste all the way back in 2021. Those logs painted a chilling picture of how long this connection had been going on. And once that info leaked, the story transformed from suspicious to downright sinister. These digital receipts were about to become the nail in the coffin, not just proving David knew Celeste, but showing their connection had been going on for years, starting back when she was only 11 or 12 years old. Discord mods who ran David's fan community later tried to downplay everything, saying they assumed Celeste was 18 or 19 and had no clue she was actually a missing 15-year-old. But the evidence told a completely different, darker story. The archived chat showed a clear pattern that anyone street smart could see as textbook grooming behavior. According to sources who reviewed the logs, David's first contact with Celeste happened on Roblox when she was about 11. Over time, the convo shifted onto Discord and other private platforms. Exactly how predators operate, starting on kid-friendly apps before moving to hidden spaces where nobody's watching. Then came the tattoo evidence that investigators locked in on. Both David and Celeste had matching tattoos inked on their right index fingers, a bizarre, almost secretive symbol of their hidden bond. Sure, plenty of celebs like Rihanna, Lindsay Lohan, and Cher Lloyd rocked similar designs, But the placement, the timing, and the fact they both got the same mark, that was way too specific to brush off as coincidence. And if that wasn't enough, a leaked demo track titled Celeste surfaced, allegedly recorded by David in December 2023. The lyrics were obsessive, disturbing, and flat out inappropriate.
I think even more importantly was that she mentioned that Celeste, at least she was under the impression that Celeste was dating a guy called David, and that she had hung out with him several times before, and that was...
He rapped, "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. Smell her on my clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed." That song raised eyebrows everywhere because it didn't just reference the tattoo. It hinted at a relationship that had crossed serious boundaries. The fact that he supposedly recorded this track when Celeste would have been only 13 or 14 had investigators asking brutal questions about what was really happening behind the scenes. And people started noticing another creepy pattern. David's release dates. His breakout video Romantic Homicide dropped on September 7th, 2022, the exact date of Celeste's birthday. That eerie timing had the streets buzzing, with many wondering if his career milestones weren't just random, but secretly tied to her all along. This wasn't some random coincidence. People started clocking a chilling pattern. David seemed to time major music releases around Celeste's birthday, and that screamed premeditation and obsession. In the industry, release dates are usually picked for chart strategy or label schedules, not to line up with a teenager's birthday. That detail alone suggested a level of personal significance way outside the lines of any professional relationship, and it fueled theories that their bond was way deeper than anyone realized. And then came the order that raised eyebrows. Delete everything. Delete everything. Everything goes. That phrase spread like wildfire because it hinted someone in his camp knew exactly how bad the digital trail looked. But the receipts didn't end at Discord logs and music drops. Internet investigators uncovered photos and clips showing David with a girl who strongly resembled Celeste, though her face was usually hidden or turned away. Some of these files allegedly came from leaked iCloud backups, showing them together across different settings, backstage at concerts, chilling inside private homes, even traveling. The most talked about piece? A joint live stream featuring David and Celeste, where they appeared side by side, chatting with fans and answering questions like they'd done it 100 times before. That stream, reportedly from January 2024, showed them laughing, comfortable, and way too familiar, leaving little doubt they had an ongoing connection. But later, the video mysteriously vanished, making people wonder what other evidence had been scrubbed clean before anyone could catch it. Then a bombshell testimony dropped from a former teacher at Celeste's middle school. This teacher went viral on TikTok, explaining how Celeste had confided to classmates that she'd met David online at just 13 years old. According to her account, Celeste even ran away at one point to be with him in Hollywood. That testimony turned the whispers into a full-on firestorm, pushing the case out of rumor territory and straight into a terrifying reality. Celeste had once been found by police and brought home, only to vanish again in 2024. That teacher's testimony gave investigators crucial context, showing just how long and how dangerous this pattern had been. And the fact that her revelation came from a classroom discussion about online safety made it even more powerful, because it meant at least some adults already knew Celeste was caught up in something risky. That raised serious questions about what, if anything, was actually done to protect her. The investigation revealed Celeste had been reported missing at least 4 separate times in 2024, and each disappearance looked tied to David in some way. Her own brother told investigators that the last time he saw her, she was leaving the house to catch a movie with somebody named David. And the car she left in? That same Tesla where her body would eventually be discovered.
A lot of people are going to be asking the very obvious question of, why hasn't David been brought in at least for questioning? Law enforcement doesn't have the answers they want in order to be able to confront or question David, especially without an autopsy report.
That chilling detail suggested the very ride she thought was taking her out for a night ended up being the vehicle that carried her to her end. As detectives dug deeper, social media analysis uncovered even darker signals. David's TikTok repost history showed content that suddenly looked disturbing in the context of the case. Videos about possessiveness, jealousy, and violent themes in relationships. One repost in particular had people shook, content centered around jealousy and aggression between couples, while another clip included references to cannibalism and consuming a partner. At the time, they might have looked like edgy reposts. But with Celeste's tragic fate, they suddenly read like prophetic red flags hiding in plain sight. All these digital breadcrumbs, the Discord chats, the leaked photos, the live stream, the tattoo connection, and now the disturbing online content, pieced together a picture of a relationship that had been running in the shadows for years, visible the whole time to anyone who knew where to look. What came to light wasn't just proof that David and Celeste had been in contact. It looked like documentation of a full-blown grooming operation. It escalated step by step, from online messages to physical meetings to repeated disappearances, and finally the ultimate tragedy. The breaking point hit on September 17, 2025, when LAPD homicide detectives stormed the Hollywood Hills house David had been staying in. This wasn't some polite knock at the door. This was a high-intensity raid that dragged on for hours, with multiple specialized units swarming the property. And what they uncovered inside flipped the case on its head. Now, a raid like this doesn't just happen overnight. Investigators had to convince a judge they had probable cause, that Celeste's passing was directly connected to this house, and that evidence of that crime would be sitting inside. The fact they cleared that legal bar meant they were holding on to some heavy receipts, tying the location straight to the tragedy. And this wasn't just any random spot either. The house was a $4.1 million luxury property, rented at $20,000 a month under David's manager, but basically where he lived. The kicker? That same Tesla with Celeste's remains was dumped less than 100 feet away. That proximity alone screamed red flags. Either someone was reckless beyond belief, or they were panicking so hard they dumped the evidence right in their own backyard. Experts pointed out that for detectives to even get that warrant, they had to show a strong chance of finding incriminating material inside. Which means by the time the raid went down, investigators weren't just fishing. They already had compelling leads that made the judge greenlight a full-scale search. And once they tore through that mansion, what they pulled out would set the tone for everything that followed in this case. Investigators didn't walk out of that mansion empty-handed. They hauled off multiple computers, stacks of electronic devices, and bags full of evidence. These electronics were expected to be game changers, with digital forensic teams digging through years of messages, photos, and files that could finally expose the true nature of David and Celeste's relationship. The seized hard drives were thought to hold the complete digital history, including deleted texts, hidden photos, and maybe even files that laid out a chilling timeline of how everything spiraled. Sources close to the case even revealed detectives were hunting for blood evidence inside the house, a detail that suggested they feared this could have been the very place Celeste was ended.
Well, and find evidence of what happened to her, right? Like,
and then to find out.
And who else was, because I was told by a neighbor that there was a lot of people going in and out of this house.
Right.
He obviously had friends of his that were living there. So doesn't necessarily mean it was David. Was it maybe someone else that was frequent?
Or at least where her body had been prepared before being dumped in that Tesla. The search wasn't basic either. It was methodical, with luminol testing and advanced forensic techniques lighting up areas invisible to the naked eye. That kind of testing can expose microscopic traces of blood even if someone scrubbed the place spotless. And detectives weren't stopping there. They examined basements, garages, freezers, anywhere a body might have been hidden before being moved. The disturbing condition of Celeste's remains made it clear she'd been gone for a while, which left haunting questions. How long had she been passed and where had her body been kept during that time? Every corner of that $4.1 million house was being combed for answers. And the timing of the raid, that wasn't random. It came just one day after Celeste's identity was officially confirmed. That move proved investigators had been quietly building their case for weeks, maybe even months, carefully stacking evidence until the moment they were ready to strike. Insiders even whispered about surveillance being run on the property, tracking who came in, who left, and who might have been involved in the cover-up. What they were piecing together wasn't just a case. It was the unraveling of a nightmare hiding in plain sight. After the raid, David's moves only made him look more suspicious. Just days later, movers were spotted clearing out the Hollywood Hills mansion, with David breaking his $20,000 a month lease and walking away from the property entirely. To the public, it looked like he was either panicking and running from the evidence or following some urgent legal advice to cut ties with a crime scene drenched in controversy. Either way, the timing couldn't have looked worse, and David wasn't the only one under the microscope. His inner circle started catching heat too, especially his bodyguard, Mark Morales, who suddenly came under FBI scrutiny. That shift from local cops to federal investigators signaled this case might involve interstate crimes, like transporting a minor across state lines or other factors serious enough to drag the feds in. Meanwhile, friends in LA later told reporters they believed Celeste was David's 19-year-old girlfriend. They said she used fake IDs to get into age-restricted spots, which blurred the truth about her real age. That detail painted an even darker picture, not just of deception, but of a whole environment that let her pass in adult circles while she was still a child. The big question became, how many people around David knew the truth? And how far did the cover-up really go? But the most damaging blow to David's defense didn't come from cops or prosecutors. It came from private investigator Steve Fisher. His independent analysis suggested Celeste may have died from an overdose, but that didn't mean no crime had occurred. In fact, Fisher's breakdown was chilling. A crime definitely took place, he said, framing the case not just as a tragic accident, but as a deliberate chain of events that someone would have to answer for. Celeste didn't end up in that Tesla by herself, and private investigator Steve Fisher made that point clear. His digging revealed that David's own manager, Josh Marshall, had already known in 2024 that Celeste was listed as a missing person. That detail destroyed any chance of claiming ignorance. If Marshall was aware and still allowed contact to continue, it could open the door to charges like harboring a runaway or contributing to the delinquency of a minor, even if prosecutors struggled to nail down the heavier crimes. Then the case swerved into an even stranger headline. David's mother, Colleen Burke, was photographed leaving a Texas gun shop holding an AR-15 manual. It was her first public appearance since the scandal broke, and the timing had people whispering non-stop. The photo showed her walking out with an unidentified male companion, possibly security, which immediately sparked questions. Was the family bracing for threats, or was it just about exercising their rights while living through chaos? Either way, it added a whole new layer of intrigue to the story. Meanwhile, David's career was collapsing in real time. Interscope slammed the brakes on all promo and marketing, his management went silent, and every tour date was systematically canceled. Fans who had already paid for tickets were left hanging, while the industry scrambled to deal with the fallout of backing an artist under investigation for something this explosive. Reports said the cancellations burned through millions of dollars and left thousands of fans disappointed. And the ripple effect didn't stop there. Other artists started quietly backing away to protect their own brands. Callie S. made it loud and clear she was cutting ties, even moving to pull their collaboration off streaming platforms. Others who were supposed to hit the studio with David suddenly went ghost, canceling projects behind the scenes. What had once been a fast-rising star was now radioactive, and nobody wanted to be standing too close when the truth finally landed. The way the music industry dropped David overnight spoke volumes. Insiders clearly knew things the public hadn't seen yet, and keeping his name attached to their brands became impossible. Meanwhile, the spotlight shifted to the most pressing question. How exactly did Celeste die? The official cause of passing is still deferred, with investigators waiting on the full autopsy results. Until that confirmation comes in, prosecutors can't file homicide charges. At best, they could push lesser charges tied to obstruction, evidence tampering, or related crimes. But legal experts warn the system moves slow for a reason, especially with a high-profile figure who has money, lawyers, and resources to fight back. Prosecutors don't want to rush and risk a failed trial because one bad verdict could trigger double jeopardy protections, making it impossible to ever retry him for the same crime. That means if they move, they have to move with an airtight case. On September 23rd or 24th, Celeste's body was finally released to her family, who had been living in agonizing uncertainty for months. Funeral arrangements brought a measure of closure, but nothing could erase the reality of a 15-year-old whose life was cut brutally short. Lake Elsinore rallied around her memory, holding vigils where hundreds gathered, candles in hand, demanding justice. For many, it wasn't just about mourning, it was about accountability and making sure her story doesn't get brushed aside. The outrage online has been relentless. Social media campaigns have blasted David, calling for justice and exposing what they see as the industry's silence. But the case also cracked open a bigger, uncomfortable conversation. How easy it is for predators to reach minors through platforms that look harmless on the surface. Advocates have zeroed in on Roblox, the very place where David allegedly first connected with Celeste, as a cautionary tale of how children can be targeted in plain sight. What started as whispers about one artist is now a nationwide warning about child safety in the digital age, and a demand for answers that won't fade anytime soon. The toll on Celeste's family has been heartbreaking. Her brother has reportedly faced harassment from online sleuths and social media users desperate for details, showing the ugly side of internet vigilantism. Instead of helping, this type of obsession risks interfering with official investigations and piles even more trauma onto a family already shattered by loss. The entertainment industry is also under the microscope, forced to face tough questions about how much responsibility labels, managers, and insiders really have when it comes to monitoring their artists. When fans are involved, especially young ones, turning a blind eye can't be an option. The fact that multiple people in David's circle believed Celeste was an adult shows either they were deceived or worse, they ignored the signs staring them in the face. This saga of David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez is nowhere near finished. With forensic results still pending and legal proceedings on the horizon, the case is set to bring even more twists. What began as a missing persons report has now exploded into a nationwide scandal. One that's shining a harsh light on child safety online, predatory behavior hiding in plain sight, and the accountability of celebrities and their inner circles. Communities are left asking how many other kids could be at risk if the system doesn't step up. Thank you for watching. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure to drop a comment, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with others. And don't forget to click on one of the boxes playing right now to check out more content. See you on the next one.